to 2-1 to ZenAku. As 2-1, I feel is like the likely result, weighing these two players up when it comes to skill level in that. But ZenAku, I just have to go with the boy. Like, he's been doing so well recently. Been watching a lot of his streams, a lot of his scrims, and he's looking rock solid. However, immediately all guns blazing is nosfa straight through the telly, full speed ahead. The item exchange, and he has been bamboozled off the map. I watched that through ZenAku's point of view. That was a great one.
That was an interesting little scuffle to start the day here, Ryan, I must say. There's not something I even anticipated until now. I thought they would feed each other out a little bit just to kind of understand what plan of action these two have, but instead they just went all out here. As nosfa's taking a bit too much damage. Does get the heavy, though, in the process. Only available for a small segment of time.
And in that instance,
in a good spot here.
ZenAku was just listening out. He heard the grappling hook. He knows that nosfa's going towards heavy, so it was going to be a free mega pickup, an opportunity to get really healthy, and a brave push up that jump pad. You know, even with the LG in hand, ZenAku knows that if he hits that rail, it's going to at least force nosfa to retreat. As now the rotation of items continues, actually knows, the timing on both items is perfectly there. Didn't quite have the angle for the rail. That miss is going to allow for a free uncontested pickup of the heavy. ZenAku takes the mega just as a bonus prize, but there's been a large emphasis and reliance on this rail so far. It's going to be that nature against the lights, is that you hit one rail versus any other champion, it's not going to be as pivotal, but with someone like Athena, she's going to be forced to retreat straight away. ZenAku, even 30 damage on that rocket is enough to push forward. Is now 10 seconds on the items. nosfa goes for something brave, but might live to regret that. A defensive rail to force him away is going to help him, but the immediate turnaround, I don't think ZenAku was expecting that at all.
ZenAku will be able to survive. No, he does not. But at least he burns the heavy for his troubles. Coming down 2-0 here. And the only issue I had with ZenAku in the past, especially a few weeks ago, he was always having trouble contesting this heavy, no matter what opponent he was up against. When he was against Rafa last time, he couldn't get anywhere near the heavy. You would see him pick up one, maybe two, if you're lucky, throughout the entire duration of this matchup, and that was on multiple maps, not even just this one alone here. So we need to try and see him contest it a little bit better, which I'm sure he'll be able to. Now, he's had a few weeks to kind of recuperate and able to try and correct those mistakes, but let's see how it turns out here. Mega is up, does manage to pick it up here. He is railable as nosfa looking to try and back away. Isn't going to drop for the light, actually going to come out of position just a tad here. Could get taken by the peak, and 9 HP here, Ryan. And it looks like he may be able to survive. No, it does back away again, but the question is how long for?
With the damage alone, ZenAku is going to have a rough idea over the only places nosfa can go to lick his wounds. So the immediate rocket spam towards that light health near telly. I mean, it was such a likely result, but wait a minute! ZenAku tried to go for a nail jump towards where rail was. It would have put him in a good position for this mega, immediately getting caught by a rail, though knocks him off, of course, looking for a rocket damage, but just can't get it. ZenAku can't get the consistent damage, and it is coming down to that mobility. nosfa is all over the place, and ZenAku just can't secure him at this point. But thankfully, we've only had 3 minutes on the clock, so there is plenty of time to get the job done. nosfa going to be playing a smart defensive game at the moment. We'll know that this heavy's going to get taken. The immediate rails, they've been so important to just keep ZenAku a little bit on his toes, a little bit nervous perhaps to push forward. He has got time to wait, and now full control for the Strogan Pika. The rail that nosfa not looking in that direction at all. I feel like they've both kind of caught each other by surprise a fair few times. The nature of the champions, I'm sure, but it has resulted in some interesting fights, and there we go again. nosfa goes down.
I think he felt he was a little bit surprised. He was just hanging up there on 10 HP with a light, just hoping that maybe ZenAku would just dive on straight past him. But ZenAku just checking his angles, making sure he has everything checked out here. But just waiting to see if he rotates around, but does take a rail for his troubles. Both of them almost on equal stand. Not until ZenAku picks up that mega. It's going to hit towards the LG again. Finds him, hits the first one, which is so vital here. Trying to push him with the peak. It gets a little bit of done going towards the other side here, but instead, even though ZenAku makes the wrong move, or the wrong read rather, at least that way he's in position about the heavy. And this is what I said before, he needs to try and contest these heavies a lot better compared to what we saw a few weeks ago, and it seems to be the fact that he has been able to do just that though. Good rail though from nosfa, still trying to tackle on, just hides on the literally the edge of that mega jump pad and tie things up.
Wasn't particularly sure if getting knocked on there was intentional, but he definitely, you know, when life gives you lemons and all that.
We'll take it.
I mean, a lot of his hitbox was probably protected from that angle. nosfa picks up that light, but immediately eats a rail for his troubles. A kamikaze as well. bonus damage, more for the information, the scanning afterwards as ZenAku, he smells blood. Can nosfa escape? Oh, he does! Just about! All right, hang on a minute. That is going to take a little bit of time now. Not going to be as comfortable. The pushback on the Mega, though, I'm not sure about that. Was nosfa perhaps expecting ZenAku to be somewhere else?
Maybe.
He had so much health.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, but decided to just double back anyway and just reround around the LG area. But ZenAku, though, does continue to pick up these heavies, but the problem is he's taking these back-to-back defensive rails from nosfa here. One of his own here. They're both railable. ZenAku's the one who takes the risk. Risk paid off.
nosfa put ZenAku in such a tricky position. ZenAku sticking there, and the faith in the man's rails reigns supreme. And oh no, nosfa, you've just spawned! You've got nothing! If you miss the rail, you're going to be a done deal, and ZenAku knows it. Ugh. When you get that kind of situation where you know your opponent's just spawned, they've got no weapons, and they miss the shot, it's like, it's feasting time.
And it's going to continue to be that way. I think, Ryan, look at the stack difference. And we mentioned before with the Athena, if you're on the back foot, you may have to take some of these back-to-back trades here, even though he's gone for the Mega a little bit too early. But you can see wanting to do that just to at least add a little bit of pressure. The problem is, I don't think he expects him to be that aggressive towards that Mega area. ZenAku has him trapped, realizes that he's gone back all the way around. It's a matter of how ZenAku wants to try and make this push. But you've got to remember, ZenAku's done a lot of damage across the board, but nosfa's just kept ZenAku at bay with the damage of his own. 3.5 minutes left. Definitely not out of the realms of possibility here to try and come back in this matchup, especially with the rails coming out from nosfa here, but ZenAku's been almost equally as good.
Yeah, their rail accuracy has been almost completely even. 52 versus 45 doesn't sound like much, but I think when you look at how many rails both of these gents have fired, it goes a long way. But the reality is, ZenAku has had more control over these items. There goes the rocket as well. That when these rail trades are happening, it's just so often more advantageous for ZenAku because he has more to work with. Oh my good lord, nosfa! Cannot deny the Mega. And ZenAku was kind of he stuck to his guns here. There's been a massive reliance on the rail to open these fights. And truly, even though the aim was not 100% in the opening few minutes, he kind of just realized, I just need to stick at what I'm doing and start hitting the shots. Layer 1 analysis, I know, but now ZenAku is starting to get the damage on deck. It is becoming so much harder, and there's the two-piece combo. He's weak! Would have got another kill. nosfa is able to get a rail at the very least, and okay, wait a minute. We saw a similar comeback last time. Two different players, sure, but if it's Awoken and there's a few minutes left to go, I ain't gonna doubt it until the job is done! Speaking of which, nosfa picks up another one.
Oh, as if he took it by surprise in that choke point as well. It's ZenAku just made the assumption he's going to rotate all the way back around. It's good first round from nosfa. He's continue hitting me. He's made the peak. Has already done way too much damage. So now for nosfa, he's still got to try and find 4 frags in the next minute 50. Will he be able to do it though? Yes, but at the same time though, look at the stack difference between ZenAku and nosfa right now. It's going to be a very, very tough road here for nosfa, and you can see from the item control as well, 24 items for ZenAku, only 8 for nosfa here. But even with the rail percentages though, 57 for nosfa, 47 for ZenAku, so that's the only thing which has been keeping nosfa in this matchup to a certain degree. Only problem is now though, we could be asking a little bit too much here from nosfa, as it's now just trying to push up onto him if he can. He can dive in if he wants to go for the trade, considering the stack advantage he has. It's just a matter of how he wants to try and secure that ninth frag.
ZenAku's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's not letting up by any stretch. He's maintaining control of the items. Even stuff here, he's trying to look for the correct spawn in this instance. He's just keeping the pressure on. He's continuing to cycle the items, and in this position, like, yeah, I know mathematically nosfa does not have time to win this map anymore, but when there was 2.5 minutes left to go, we saw that kind of pivotal frag with the Pika coming up by the heavy that stopped any chance of a comeback that would have existed. And ZenAku is just being a bit of a bully at the end of this map, because that's how you keep someone behind. That's going to be a first map win here for ZenAku. I had a bit of a rough couple of minutes, but he immediately turns things around, and then really control was the aim of the game. Control, landing those magical rails, and gotta be said, some phenomenal use of the Pika. It just put that pressure on so much harder, where nosfa, you want to escape, and the option isn't even there. If it's not the damage or the kamikaze, it's that temporary scan. I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving, Lethal.
Certainly is indeed. Notfa had some great defensive rails across the board just to keep the pressure away from himself, from ZenAku, considering the amount of item control he had. But, you know, that's the story, really. It's just the item control. 30 items compared to the 8 of nosfa. Not something you normally see every day. It's nice to see that nosfa's been able to do a much better job with the item control and actually make good use of it as well. There's been times where when he's got a huge stack, he doesn't make great use of it across the board, but it seems to be a lot more aggressive and taking those chances as he sees fit, which is what I wanted to see from him a few weeks ago, but now it looks much, much better indeed.
Control and stack was the aim of the game. It's reflected in the end game stats how nosfa actually ended up with more damage than ZenAku, but ZenAku's shots were more pivotal because it is just that nature of light versus not light. You know, we talked about it earlier, and I think it's always something that gets discussed, is that they're harder to hit, they're a lot faster, they're more mobile, often, some champions, maybe not so much on some maps, I guess it depends. But ultimately, we saw so many chances there where they both clash heads, a decent stack to work with, they both hit a rail, nosfa is immediately forced to retreat, and before he's even had that chance, how many times did ZenAku just immediately launch the Pika? And then if you wanted to escape, you can't even do it. You know, right there, that Pika off the spawn where all you've got is a rail and you missed the shot. Ugh, not much you can do about that one. But ZenAku just continued to powerhouse his way through that entire map. Things are going to get a little bit different now, though, because the stack advantage goes the opposite way. It's going to be the Vale as our next destination. ZenAku's picking the Galena, and nosfa is rocking the Sorlag, so we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, it certainly will do indeed. We know that ZenAku used to love his heavy champions, and he loved his beefy boys across the server no matter what map it was on, so I'm sure he'll figure out ways on how to counteract them as well. If you just missed it, there you go, 11-4 was the map scoreline between ZenAku and nosfa here, but just look at it, the damage zone. This is what I was talking about from nosfa, 52%, just over 2100 damage with the rail, and it was his defensive rails and awareness which kept him in that matchup. If it was not for that, it would have been 16-17-1, something ridiculous like that. And you saw from there, ZenAku just piling on the pressure, suffocating his opponent, just cornering him on one side of the map or the other every single time, just flipping the map back and forth. And we said it before the map started, if for Athena it all goes wrong at the beginning, then there's going to be some, you know, cause for concern here. And ZenAku, the only problems I had with him really is the fact that he struggled to pick up them heavy the first few minutes, but that's just me picking at strings really. It's just, you know, just nitpicking at a few areas of his gameplay, but he knew that anyway. It was just put in a tough situation at times in order to try and contest that heavy, but then straight afterwards, 30 items to 8, you can't complain with that at all in the slightest here. So we need to see a bit more of that, especially in this matchup, as you said, with the Sorlag versus the Galena. And for nosfa, he's going to be happy about that in terms of the champion picks. If it was the Eisen, probably not too happy, and you know, the fact that to force himself out of you know, those good situations, those good positions on the high ground. But now with the Sorlag, he can teeter around, he can use that mobility to stop that overstack if he can, depending on where the terms are going to be placed, mainly in the rail room as we normally see it here, just to force him down below. And then we see it here, Vale would be the second map, and then it will go to the final map, which will be on Ruins for the Ranger versus the Anarchy, another explosive matchup.
Both players just went for a client restart, so they're good to go, and we should be jumping into Vale in due time. But I think one final note to point out about Awoken was mobility was the #1 ally in the first few minutes there for nosfa. I started the map watching it through ZenAku's point of view, and there were a couple of instances where nosfa's sheer constant like repositioning was kind of doing a number on ZenAku. Like he'd go for an item, ZenAku would push forward, nosfa would immediately back the exact same way, catch him by surprise once or twice, and that's kind of where that early lead began. And then the moment that happened, ZenAku started to put a lot less emphasis on just constantly chasing, and he started just sitting there and listening out. You know, started to realize that this guy is running rings around me with more mobility than I could ever dream of, even though I'm playing as Strog. He started to be a lot kind of slower paced with those initial fights, just sticking his ear to the ground and listening. And that gave him so much more, I think, focus on what his next play should be, that he almost never got surprised like that again for the remainder of the map. There's a similar element to it on Vale. It's a lot more vertical. It's a lot more about just controlling that higher ground with an iron fist, right? But, as it will be ZenAku and nosfa, the Vale of Pnath, where I'm still not sure if I'm saying that right. I'm sure there's a loading screen thing that says Nath is pronounced Noth, And I'm not sure if that was a direct thing at, hey guys, you gotta stop calling it Nath. It's not. Can someone please confirm that to me? Sync, can you, if you're listening right now, can you? I don't want to get it wrong. If I've been getting it wrong, I've been getting it wrong for 2 years, and I feel really bad. But let's now jump on. 20 seconds in, looking at things from nosfa's point of view, and a fight has already broken out.
It's alright. I used to call Snorlax Snorlax, so you know, each to their own really. When it comes to mistakes like that, so you don't have to. That's probably worse actually. But when it comes to the name Vale, it's why I just say Vale. I think it's safe. I don't need to mention the whole name just in case.
Yeah, but the whole name sounds so cool, Harry. It sounds so cool.
I know, mate.
It's like my favourite map, the Church of Azathoth. Bro, that's a cool name, dude. That's a cool name. I might have said that wrong as well, actually, for all I know. Anyway.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying it any more than that came back.
You know what is happening, though, is that immediate higher ground controlled by Galena, something we've seen so many times over and over. And that Eternal Totem, 2 of them, in fact, cleared out there by nosfa, pushes his way towards Mega. Not a bad little exchange then, as he's able to take some important items away, he's able to take away those totems, and it forces ZenAku down near where he's likely going to try and use those hourglasses, and maybe nosfa a bit wise to it. You know, he's listening. Look at where he's looking right now. He knows exactly where his opponent is. He's just trying to control this half. Keep that health away from Galena at all costs.
For ZenAku now, it's all about keeping his distance. He's able to do that for now, but the problem is he's taking a chunk of damage from that last rocket, and of course ZenAku trying to back away if he can. Done a lot of rail damage here. A little bit of a shock to the system. Both players will trade out the items. Good reason for the rockets as well. We could pin him here if he tried to take him down with that rail, but ZenAku comes back with one of his own. Lovely stuff here from ZenAku, coming back in with first little LG scuffle here, but misses a couple of rockets here. ZenAku gonna back away once again. 40 HP, but could it be okay to get out of here?
Up until that final exchange, ZenAku was 4 for 4 on the rails in that point. A bit early, actually, using the rocket jump through the teleporter. Normally, we do see that immediately kind of like fly by and steal the item, but there was still a few seconds to work with there. And it is going to result in a 1-1 situation. What I was going to say before that, though, is that ZenAku had hit perfect rails. And you can just see the difference, right? If you have reliance on rail, the difference between hitting those shots and not. So much space is given up. And now, actually, it will be nosfa pushing forward instead with a rail in hand, swapping to LG. But in doing so, actually, does give a little bit up. An opportunity for ZenAku to get damage! The 2-piece combo! Shutting down that rail cooldown. God! Feels so bad, and now as ZenAku dies, he did take away the heavy, so it is going to stabilize. But actually, no. Man lives to fight another day. Can't believe it.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised. I was going to say, at least he's burned the heavy and done one taking rail damage. ZenAku just running. Oh, good rocket as well. Doesn't the initial rail, but it's already done enough already just to keep nosfa dancing for dear life around that rocket area. He's got the overstack as well here. Right, 60 again, backing away once more, just waiting for this heavy. Once he picked this up, we damn well know that ZenAku's going to be on the warpath here to try and collect that third frag going into this matchup here, and already got the information he needs from that last totem taken down. The split's going to give nosfa a bit of breathing room here, but it's actually not done too bad in terms of his stack. Gone back to default, not after that last rail shot. ZenAku's tanked one, but he's not going to care about that at all in the slightest. Just waiting for nosfa to make the first move. Finds it. Ooh, lovely direct there, just to shut things down.
That was a bit of a tragic situation for nosfa because, yes, on one hand, was able to take out that final totem that was there. At that point, though, ZenAku had got himself so much stack, and that totem was so individually out on its own that you can't really spam there to get it to the same effect as other totems. It was so obvious where nosfa was on the map that ZenAku just picked up the item and then ran straight there. And of course, the 100 damage rocket was just the cherry on top, but information above all else, as now the spam and denial. That is not going to be a heavy that nosfa can contest unless he gets a rail. Does land it, kind of just in time, actually. I think a few frames before that might have been a dead ZenAku, but onward and upward.
Ooh, taking a fair amount of rocket damage there. Little rail standoff on the bottom of the LG stairs, but look at the stack difference now. nosfa, after picking up that mega, heavy's up in the next 10. ZenAku's debating whether to see what position nosfa's going to take. ZenAku's still got an angle though. He's not going to go for it, but is at least going to try and get the rail before he picks that up. But the problem is he doesn't. nosfa stacked to the eyeballs here, and this is going to be a window of opportunity now for nosfa to try and shut ZenAku down if he can. But I like this from ZenAku, just keeping his distance, keeping his prey at bay, and waiting for the first move to come out from nosfa. We know it's going to be an aggressive one. And you can see, look, just making the assumption that ZenAku's around that rail area, but it's not. We'll find him from that tri-bolt, though. Luckily, misses out on that first rail, but hits one of his own. Misses the second, but that's going to be okay. He's already done enough damage to at least even out the stack ever so slightly, and still has a totem in his back, so his back pocket also. Just trying to see if he can at least get a little bit more damage with those rockets in hands. Meg's up the next few seconds. Will he even try and attempt for it here? Rocket jumps up. Good little bit of LG damage here, but he may have to just give up on this Mega, which he has done. And the thing is, though, for nosfa, oh, another good rail again from ZenAku. Look at
still
the
railable,
which he has done. Will he go for the third? No, nosfa backs away straight away. Perfectly understandable.
This defensive play from ZenAku has been unbelievable, and actually working for those 2 minutes towards at least taking one of those items. It's going to stop that push from nosfa. Finds a rail out of his backside by the looks of things. But in this position, that defensive couple of minutes was phenomenal. There was so much space always. The defensive angles were very different to if he was in any other position. Even down near Tri-Bolt, you know, looking at the teleporter, jumping down near where Heavy was, there was always some kind of plan B, some kind of escape. The fact that he survived is unbelievable. But now the control is actually starting to get severely into his favor. But he's the one in the lead too. You know, he's the one that's already in charge of the map. The one with the lead, forcing nosfa have to make these plays, and the rails at this point just refuse to miss. Apart from that one. What's up with commentators' curse, Lethal? I can't believe it.
I don't know. I wouldn't even ask me at this point. It's another rail comes up for ZenAku, 2 for 2. Lovely stuff. Again, extends his lead 4 to 1. And we have to go back to what we saw a couple of minutes ago, but before we say that, the LG comes out. Lovely LG from ZenAku. He's got the totem to at least extend his life insurance in that little scuffle, but nosfa, rightly so, does back away. But we have to go back to it, though. The stack advantage nosfa had, I kind of feel like at this stage, nosfa's got his offensive balance is kind of off-key. Like, he's pushing when he shouldn't, and when he should push, he doesn't. Does that make sense? It just seems a little bit off-key with some of the attempts he makes, and I don't know if it's because he's trying to play a little bit too clever or he's just trying to be a little bit too methodical, but sometimes it's just all about just simple as effective and just drop down and just try and make these plays as you see fit. But then again, at the same time, as you rightly said, ZenAku's doing a great job just in terms of his defensive posture, just getting the right angles and already being out of range, just doing a great job just picking away at nosfa's stack.
Yeah, the LG push near Heavy seemed a little bit spontaneous. I feel like that kind of push would not have happened earlier on if there was more time to kind of play around with, but because we have got 2.5 minutes or so. Maybe a hint of desperation, perhaps. ZenAku, the management of the totems has been so strong that he's always got just the right amount of stack he needs to survive. Not necessarily get the frag, but get away. And by getting away, he sets himself up for another rail angle where he's constantly hitting those key shots to keep nosfa at bay. And in some cases, actually just secure himself a frag. There's another defensive rail. Getting rid of all of it! Here's the death scream. Knows that Sorlag is at death's door and takes full advantage. ZenAku has just been playing around nosfa's aggression so perfectly throughout this series. We saw the same thing on Awoken. And this is going to result at this stage. I don't see a comeback happening. Not this late. Not with a minute and a half left to go. This has got to be a 2-0 for ZenAku at least.
Yeah, for a minute 20 left. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, but it's like I mentioned before, if he just abused that mobility a little bit more and the speed with the stack he had, we could be seeing a completely different story here for nosfa, taking again a little bit of damage. But it's like I said before, again, great combo from ZenAku. Just keeping his distance, just keeping the range. I think it's just a bit of both, really, from ZenAku and nosfa. There's times when nosfa has tried to push in, but ZenAku just been out of the realms of possibility, but he may get a frag here, but after picking up that Mega, maybe a little bit of a call for concern here. Now ZenAku does back away, but as you rightly mentioned here, Ryan, only 35 seconds left until after that, all that as well. 8-1, 30 seconds left. You're right, though, it is going to be 2-0 going into the third round.
ZenAku has been in so many positions where most players would just die. But his management of the totems and saving it for when he absolutely needs it. Now, there's always two kinds of Galena players. There's those that use the totem as a last-minute kind of top-up. I think the matchup will change the utility a little bit, though, because if you are going against a Sorlag, if you are going against a Death Knight, someone that has kind of access to damage over time, stuff that can cause a bleed almost, that totem becomes so much more important to use to nullify that kind of exchange than just using it to constantly shut down. You know, ZenAku, when he had constant stack and he had constant control, those totems were being used, you know, round corners, preemptively. There were a couple of instances where he had the overstack, all 3 totems were on the map, great. But then the more the map started to go forward, that totem was absolutely being saved for when the fights were happening, if there was no other health nearby, if you needed to stop the spit damage perhaps. It just makes it so much harder for nosfa to actually make a comeback, because now you're dealing with someone who is saving the totem, because they're already controlling loads of the map anyway. They're saving that utility to heal in a position where any other champion probably would have gone down of that weight class. So I think that was just perfect mid-match adjustments from ZenAku, knowing that he already had a strong lead, and we've got to give those shout-outs to Rails once again. I mean, like, the rail was key to securing so many of those initial frags on nosfa, because bam, you know, 1 or 2 back-to-back. What does nosfa do in that situation?
Not much at all here, and you're right, though. Very, very strong adaptation from ZenAku from the get-go, using that tri-belt to feed himself info, using the rail to try and stop nosfa in his tracks. If it did try to make some kind of aggressive push, we didn't really see a lot of. And when we did, again, he was just a little bit out of range, so we saw that time and time again. And in terms of hit percentage, though, 57 for nosfa and 53 coming out there from the side of nosfa on the other side. But in terms of item control, I can't remember what it was from the top of my head. I think it was 21-16 in favor of ZenAku there. And considering what we saw, there was a couple of moments where for nosfa's stack and what he had, and considering the verticality of the situation and positions he had, we were like, okay, we should get a second here, we should get a third at some point, maybe get back to back and then go from there. Didn't even get one, and that's where it was a bit of a question mark for, you know, a lot of us, thinking like, what on earth's going on in terms of some of the pushes he makes, or we could say lack of pushes, which we were really wanted to see or desperate to see. He desperately required it time and time again, but we need to see something a little bit more different, especially on a map like Ruins, because you can't really make some of these stalemate plays, especially when you've got a stack like that.
I think if there was one map where there was a good chance of nosfa being able to kind of get that one win if he needs it, you know, because every map counts, even though it's a 2-0 to ZenAku right now.
Yeah.
A 2-1 is a lot better than a 3-0. Every win giving you some kind of reward. Like, you always have to play your best, right? Ruins, not necessarily the map, but the champion in particular has me thinking that this could be nosfa's opportunity to at least get a map on the board, because ZenAku has, I think, put a lot of faith in himself with this pick. Maybe would be feeling a bit more not so sure about it if the other maps weren't going his way, but he's had such good positioning, such good control, and importantly for Ruins, his rail has been the key of his entire game plan throughout this series. You need to have all of those things on lock if you're going to pick a light champion on Ruins anyway. Mostly because those light armors, they are some of the more out of the way that you can pick up. We say it all the time because it really is important when it comes to shutting down light champions, because if they can't get those, what do? And if they want them, they always have to risk a rail. The rail is the big thing that you have to think about. But if ZenAku is able to have control early, is able to use his injection to either move around nice and fast in certain situations, but kind of similar to how he played Galena, maybe just saving it to give himself that top up to kind of compete with the medium champion. I think that with how this series has gone so far, ZenAku has put himself in the best position for this pick to work. Anyway, Harry, take it away, mate. Sorry, I'm talking a lot today. I haven't been here in a while, and it's good to be back. I missed everyone. Lethal.
I'll be honest, I was just sitting there chilling, just soaking up everything you were saying, but you know, you were right with a lot of the bits you said. And going to this matchup as well, normally with Ruins, you always see someone like an item with the turret for the heavy, or, you know, using the Galena, especially with the totems, to scatter around, especially around the heavy win. We've seen quite a lot from a few of these players, but we're not going to see any of that. It's going to be a bloodbath dropping down for that heavy time and time again. There's a lot of scuffles to be had, I feel like, here right now, as we're going into third and final map, as ZenAku's coming up 2-0 in the series. We can see what could be done. There's a lot of trade potential for nosfa here if he does get taken down with the Ranger, and also at the same time in a good position to try and get back-to-back frags if he is behind or does want to extend his lead. Depends how you see it already, but good LG damage early on from ZenAku, catching him whilst he was picking up an LG of his own. ZenAku now, though, down to 95 HP. Realises that nosfa's already backed away, picks up the light and uses the inject just to see if he could try and put up a good fight against the heavy, but just a little too late on the heavy jump pad here. So decides just to safely secure the Mega. We'll pick up the light momentarily, but just try and rejuvenate the inject once again, but still only a minute has passed, and this is more of a slower paced matchup we expected, but here we go, the Rails are back in action here, Ryan.
Yeah, I think that first exchange near Heavy, you could clearly see that it was so much more important for ZenAku to pick up those hourglasses instead, right? You know, why risk making the push? He's going to be down there. The Mega's up anyway. I can just back up and take it. Speaking of which, Heavy has been picked up now. The positioning for ZenAku on... Ooh! nosfa was looking for a cheeky potential double take there with the orb, one of the great uses of it. And I love that positioning from nosfa. He knows that ZenAku's going to go for the light, but actually doesn't get the damage. So although he had the right call out, just didn't get the fight in his favor. ZenAku, he's going to be experienced in playing in all kinds of servers. I was going to point this out. It's worth noting this is an NA server, so this is going to be one that's a bit better for ZenAku. Sorry, nosfa. I was going to say ZenAku has played on so many different servers because of, you know, the history of playing in the Americas beforehand in the last season. I don't think it's going to be too much of a detriment to him, to be honest with you. I think he's going to be comfortable no matter what. He's one of the players that's more experienced playing on those higher pings. Maxter comes to mind as well.
I suppose especially, you know, running down from Australia, he's had a ton of experience, especially with a lot of the high ping matches he had to back then. I'm sure he's quite happy not to deal with 200 plus ping every single game, especially going into this matchup here. nosfa's still quite weak, while ZenAku picks up the light. Mega though will go in the hands of ZenAku. Heavy was picked up 7 seconds ago. Items are a little bit segregated, so I have to see how this will change things up here. But one more rail should do it here for ZenAku, just biding his time, just RE peeking just a tad around that nail courtyard, but he's going to be pretty damn pleased about that. This rail, or this heavy rubber's not going to be free. And saying that though, we'll get a free frag behind it straight afterwards though. Look at the stack here. This is not looking too good for nosfa. Mega's come up in the next couple of seconds. And yeah, ZenAku's playground right now.
It's the exact start you would need with this kind of choice. You know, the Anarchy is going to be a bit more volatile always. Gets a perfect call there. The jump pad, nosfa, even though the ledge grab's in full effect, I mean, you're still going to be a sitting duck against players that have accuracy like this. And actually, in this instance, ZenAku has been able to turn things around. He was able to get so much damage in most of these exchanges near Heavy that I don't think he was too heartbroken about nosfa picking it up, because ZenAku was never able to be in a situation where he can't take at least something for his troubles. Speaking of which, the injection is ready. Mega does get stolen away. There goes the injection to survive at least one more rail. They don't hit any more of those shots, though, so it's going to be a bit of a stalemate. However, who's going to be the first to pick up that key bit of utility? Looks like nosfa's going to pick up one light. ZenAku, knowing how fragile he is, has got to get out of there.
Yeah, it wasn't 100% in terms of the stack nosfa had, but he did know that there's a good chance it's going to be as equal as anything, so didn't want to take that risk, as you rightly said. Backing away, Mega's coming up any second now. It's a very vital rail, and this could be a small window of opportunity here again for ZenAku to try and re-rotate round, see if he can catch nosfa off guard here, but won't at the time.
Hey look, I know that Ruins is a rail heavy map, Lethal, but 23 rails have been fired from ZenAku and he said 60%. And it just continues to climb. There's been such emphasis on his rail the entire time, and ooh, that was a cute one. Ooh, that was a bonus. Why not? We'll take it, but oh dear, hang on a minute. nosfa hiding. Wait, no.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Okay, that's all right, that's all right. And playing hide and seek, but he got there in the end, even with his back to him.
Oh, there he is. He wasn't even moving. He was just, I'm just going to see how long it takes him to find me, to be honest.
I think he was thinking the same.
Oh, good lord.
Heavy's coming in the next second anyway, though. Does have injects in his back pocket, but on the rails we've seen so far from ZenAku, it's just not sopping, is it, Ryan, at this stage here? The stack advantage, massive, monumental, compared to what we have from nosfa. nosfa will have job to use soon enough, but you know, he'd take that last rail. Mega will be picked up. Heavy's up in the next 10. This is perfect position and a perfect world here for ZenAku so far. The only problem is he needs to be careful with the amount of chip damage he's taking here from nosfa. 5 minutes left. This will get away. Good rail shot coming out from the likes of nosfa, but again, picks up the Heavy, has the injects added to account. Still has the mobility to boot if he does want to try and get away or slow things down, just to make things a little bit tougher in order to try and execute any kind of frags for nosfa here. But yeah, just running that struggle bus once again.
ZenAku has played the matchup perfectly. Even when he got railed just then, I don't think he really cares, because he's near armor, he's got himself the inject, he knows exactly when the Mega's going to spawn. That two-piece means, oh, without an orb, nosfa, how are you going to survive this one? You're forced to retreat. You know that your opponent's just picked up the Heavy. You've got to play so carefully here. but at the same time, you got to try and stop these items from getting taken. So this is going to be a scary game to play. Bit of a potential distract with the orb. Not that it really worked, but he still was able to hit the rails at the very least. And he's taken away a key item. So 4 minutes on the clock. He needs to get 4 frags to equalize. I'm not going to say it's over just yet. There is time to make it work. And against this light, he just needs to get a couple of good sequences here.
Yeah, I'm going to give it at least a couple more minutes. nosfa's still got a massive stack, so this is where we've got to try and find out what he can do here. Nice bit of damage here. Does 90 of the nails, waiting for him to come out from the TP. ZenAku just standing his ground. Does have the advantage in terms of his positioning, but the problem is now after that last rail hit, needs to be so careful. But with the LG coming up from nosfa, great stuff. Just to better be safe and sorry rather than trying to hit that next rail shot. 3 minutes 20 left. Heavy's come up in the next second also hit. And this is a great position here for nosfa. Remember, with that starting stack, even though that orb didn't really help out, the starting stack for ZenAku could bite him on the backside if you can try and keep him on spawn over those dying minute or two.
That is a unfortunate time to not have an orb in hand, though, because that's really going to transform any potential fight. You know, if ZenAku does try and use his inject to get around, then that orb's going to somewhat stop it. And unfortunately now, by securing a frag like that, and the fact that Mega is up top, right, ZenAku's the one that's in position for it, I do worry that that one frag has kind of slipped the chance of winning this map away from poor old nosfa, who has played well, but I just think that ZenAku has been more airtight. You know, he's had the better accuracy, he's had the better control, he's made the better reads too. He's just kind of, there you go. A trade, and that trade favours the person in the lead, my friend. Here we go for the last 2.5 minutes. ZenAku extremely likely to finish this off with a 3-0. Not the expected result from me, I will admit. I did think a 2-1 was likely. But ZenAku has brought his A game today.
Yeah, he certainly has done. Still needs to find 3 frags, which is definitely possible with the back-to-back frags it can get on spawn. Oh, that was so important to just add a little bit more extra damage there onto nosfa. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit tougher now, especially with a couple minutes left to go, and the mobility on the back of ZenAku is going to help himself massively. It's yeah, a little bit unfortunate, but when you were saying he was playing airtight, completely agree. I think he's left very little room for error and not really much for nosfa to try. Oh, that was a little bit of a dicey play there. Needs to try and clean this up. Great route to clean that up. At least he'll have a little bit of style points if he does lose his third and final map, but he gets to heavy here, Ryan. So again, the opportunity to try and come back is there.
It's going to be tricky though, Lethal, because I mean, just looking at the spawns alone, ZenAku spawned right next to Mega. So you know you're going to have to deal with more stack, even if it is a light. Unfortunately, that turnaround happened as well, which puts ZenAku in a good situation once again. And he's going to just continue, I think, now to play that defensive game. You know, this is that so common point of Ruins where someone with the higher mobility knows they have the lead, and they'll kind of stick to certain areas just to make sure they're hard to follow. I don't know if he's going to go down into the staircase. I think he'd much rather just keep this control going. But I feel like this is going to be a done deal and a GG with the way things are currently going. The rails don't hit their mark, unfortunately, so maybe from the smallest of the small chance, that could have been an opening, but now that miss happened, I'm not so sure. nosfa forced to go back. Happy to take the rail because you've got life left to punish him, and that's it. GG's as ZenAku takes this 3-0 over nosfa. I think this is just a sign of ZenAku's ability to continue being nice and consistent here in the Pro League. He's come a long way, and how high will his skill ceiling reach? That's the question. I'm curious to see how far he can go.
Yeah, it's just, I kind of feel like there's just one more barrier for him to break through in terms of that skill ceiling in order to then be able to, you know, try and be more consistent against the likes of Razy, the Raffers, you know, these household names who normally consistently get top 2, top 3. But that's going to be it, though. As you rightly said, it's going to be all done and dusted. It will be a 3-0 in favour of ZenAku, as we did think it was going to be a 2-1. We made the assumption that nosfa was showing a little bit of life there. And you can see 56% accuracy for ZenAku with around 48% for nosfa. And 100 shots was fired total there, Ryan. 100. Very rail heavy game. Not just that map, but basically all 3 maps alone.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the end game stats for ZenAku's rail in all 3 of those maps, not necessarily the accuracy even, but the damage dealt. You kind of have it written down purely on paper what his main game plan always tends to be when he's able to pull it off, is just that constant chipping away piece by piece, whether he's dealing with a smaller champion, whether he's dealing with someone with more stack than him. I think that going into that second map on Vale, the Galena was such a good choice because it meant that even if he was against a larger champion, he has got that utility to constantly contest. And how many fights were happening where I feel like if it wasn't for the utility of totems, ZenAku probably would have died because he didn't have the stack to compete. So the game plan worked to perfection in all 3 maps. This was a really, really good day for him, and congratulations. Unfortunate for nosfa though. No one likes to take a 3-0 defeat, but I think that with these kind of weeklies, when opponents are starting to get as good as they are, you just reach a point where you just got to constantly climb. I think nosfa was, I kind of saw a little bit of pre-game chat where he got his NA server at the end, and it felt like that might have given him a bit more of a confidence, perhaps, I guess we'll say. But I think you're going up against ZenAku, who's used to playing in all kinds of ping. I just don't know if that would even count as an advantage.
Yeah, he's in the same boat as nosfa, really. Back when he was in Australia, he's used to playing on these very, very high ping matches, and to him, it doesn't really matter at this point now. He's so used to what he has to deal with. All these pro players really have to, but it is going to be a 3-0 here for ZenAku, as you can rightly see. But that's been the story of ZenAku's life, really, in the Pro League this season. He's either been getting 3-0'd or he's just been 3-0'ing whoever's been coming up against. We haven't really seen it go back and forth for him, but that's more due to the fact that he's had some pretty damn strong opponents coming up to his matchup here. But most of them have already, that's pretty much done it. So it should be smooth sailing for the majority of the course of the Pro League here for ZenAku. He's going to try and keep up with those 3-0s in his favour, of course, going forward.
It feels like when you're in that window of either getting 3-0'd or securing 3-0s, that is all the proof that you need, that you're right in that kind of limbo, perhaps, where the highest of the highest caliber of player is just there on the horizon, and there are other players that you're going to be very, very comfortable for. So that historically has been a player that is just on the brink of pushing that next level up. And as we continue through the course of this season, I'd love to see those wins continue. So a good result there to kick off our first series of the day. Our second one is getting prepared as we speak. On that note, we're going to jump into a quick break. So grab a cup of tea or whatever you're going to do. I'll see you there in about, I don't know how many minutes. We'll be back in a bit.